welcome to the Kyla and
Toyah show. And today we're talking about expectations, because sometimes we may need to change our expectations of ourselves, and sometimes the expectations that people have of us. And so whether that pertains to depression or whether it pertains to anything in your life, just knowing what do you expect of yourself and sometimes making adjustments as you go. So Kyla, we'll start with, with having depression, did you have to change any of the expectations that you had for yourself?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I've never actually thought about it before the show. Full disclosure. That's my full disclosure emoji, real life emoji. How there's like the emoji with the hands, like
excited one. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the excited one?
It's excited, but you have the jazz hand emoji. That's what
you're
doing. Like, I'm coming out with the truth now. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, but when I think about that question, I actually think back to something that you often say in the show, which I love, which is, managing your expectations in the sense of taking things off of your plate that don't serve you anymore, and going from, that I remember you saying, like, going from like busy, like burnout, and then to like, but I don't have to do that. Like, I'm good with it. And then just for me, I think when I had depression, prior to that, I had difficulty with three things in particular. I would say, number one, speaking my truth. Number two, creating boundaries. And then number three, sticking to like number one and two. And I think they kind of like blend in and like each one grows on each other. So I'll give an example, recently, because how everybody's on Zoom and like there's Zoom meetings and, scheduling Zoom meetings. And there's someone, and I probably, unintentional, and, I get that stuff comes up, but there's two times where we were supposed to have a meet and it was scheduled for a certain time, and I waited for 15 minutes. And, she was a no-show. And I get that, things come up for people, and like, you got stuff in your calendar, and, I think she also had gone to the hospital and she was sick. But prior to depression, I would have been like, okay, yeah, no worries. Like, but after depression, and also having written a book of just speaking my truth of 300 plus pages, I'm feeling more, I guess, comfortable to speak my truth, to say certain things. Like, my time is like this really valuable and precious, finite resource. And I didn't feel respected, that my time or I were like respected. So I don't feel comfortable planning a third call with you. And that before would have been like, okay, I'll plan a third call. And then, like freaking out about it and totally stressing out about it and not really wanting to do it. And then like running to my husband and like crying. So I think that is something that I've noticed quite recently. And I think still working on, and still a work in progress, of course, but, yeah. What about you?
I think for me, I don't know if I have a 1, 2, and 3. There's probably more than that. But for me, one of the things was my expectation or my idea of like doing my best. So like for me, doing my best was doing everything that I possibly could. So that might mean that I didn't go to sleep, or that I only slept for a certain number of hours, or that like I didn't have time for fun or whatever, because like the task needs to be completed. And not only does it need to be completed, it needs to be done like the right way. And the right way is like thorough, accurate, pulls in all the information. It becomes a bigger thing the more right you want to make it. And so having a different expectation, and that it's like my responsibility, like, you know, well, I need to do that because whatever you want to fill in the blank with. And so just even going on like a leave of absence for me was like huge, because my expectation for myself would be like, there's this job and it's this new role and we just launched this new thing and I'm the only one that really knows like how it works. And like, there's a responsibility to like, I'm not even like sending emails to a bunch of people and tying up the loose ends. I'm just like bouncing out. And so resetting the like, it's okay to do that, because really the expectation is that you take care of yourself. So that's like a reprioritization also, is like the new expectation is you take care of you, and whatever other things you were expecting, like those either don't matter or they matter less, because your like number one thing that I was expecting of myself is to like follow doctor's orders, do what feels good for me that day, not put extra pressure. Like if the answer is no, oh well. If you don't care, it's fine that you don't care. If you don't want to look for a job and you have no idea what you want to do, that's okay too. So yeah, I totally switched from being a super high performer and like super like in it, like I'm in it, brains turned on, I've got notes, I'm ready, I got ideas, to like, I don't even really want to go there right now. Like I don't even want to think about it, you know, and just making that all okay was a big shift for me. And so one of the things that you're saying was like with your like the two, that, you know, the third was kind of sticking to it, like speaking up and setting the boundaries and telling your truth. Did you find that, well, you just gave an example where like you're doing it, but do you find that there are times where like you almost get pulled back into the old way of like not having the boundaries or like not speaking up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really like how you were saying too, just quickly, like about the shift. Like you've noticed that shift, because I see it also like in terms of energy, right? Your energy shifts when your energy is good and the things that you are really aligned with, right? And that light you up. And I have a follow-up question for you after your follow-up question. Yeah. So in terms of going back, I think maybe not so much with that, but that particular incident, but maybe with, you know, certain other things like, so I'll give an example. I'm working on my second book, and for the most part, like, because it's my second, and also maybe it's like people say about their second child, you know, they're like a lot more relaxed. Yeah. Like go run. Like, yeah, you're still breathing? Great. But you know, with their first child, you know, they're like hovering. I don't even have children. I don't know why I brought up that example, but so I feel a lot more relaxed about certain things, and but there is I still feel this need of like control, you know, and I think control is this word. It's been coming up for me in the last couple of days of like the need to control, but also knowing that there's shifting the energy and shifting the focus to the things that you can control, that are like within your control, and they do feel good. They don't feel icky. So noticing that balance of, okay, I can't find an editor. Does anybody know a good editor? Please. I can't find a good editor right now. So I'm just going to let that go. And the book is not going to be launched at the time that I had wanted it to, like this month, basically, which is fine. Nobody's going to die. So yeah, I mean, I think that certain I think it's, it's kind of like an escalator, right? So with certain things, you're going to be like, yeah, okay, like those expectations and managing the expectations and other people's expectations are really good. And then you go inward a little bit. And then there's another thing, right, that you're working on. And then maybe you're moving along with that. But yeah, I was kind of curious about what you were saying about, being a high performer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, like, I don't even know if this is an oxymoron, but
Wait, hold on. Because I have not even told you how oxymoron is like my favorite word to like describe myself. I feel like when I learned that word in school, I was like, that is me. I am an oxymoron. So the fact that you're even using the word, I'm already excited. I'm like, is it an oxymoron? Yes, it is. Whatever the question is, absolutely. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's a great aside. One thing else that we learned about Toyah. Okay, so I'm curious. So you mentioned that you're a high performer, and I'm wondering if, and just for all of us, right, is it possible for us to be a high performer in the things that don't feel icky to us? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, and I feel like my answer is a little mixed because I think it goes back to like how are we defining high performance? And like what behaviors, like what does that mean? So like high performance could be like maximum output, right? Like it could be super productive, very effective or efficient or whatever, like, just really good at it. But if you have boundaries around it and so it's like, I feel like there is, people say like, when you love it, they're like, oh, when you love it, it's not even work, right? That's true to a certain extent, right? But it's still work. It's still like, something that it might feel fun, but there's still a responsibility tied to it, especially if it's garnering you a paycheck. So if you're working and, you're doing it and you love it and you're performing high, but you're doing it all the time and you're not balanced, then I feel like there's still room there for like whoa, like, I love to work, but I'm working for 80 hours. Or like, here's all the things that I don't do because I work all the time. So I feel like there's room for like a break even in that, even when you're doing what you love, which is actually, my experience with the like going back, like saying like, oh, I'm gonna change, my expectations are different, I'm taking care of me. That felt one sort of way when I was like on a leave of absence, not working, didn't know what I was gonna do. And then once I shifted into like, I'm a coach now and I have my own business and I have this, that's where some of those tendencies start wanting to creep back up of like, well, you need to work on this and there's this you can do and there's this and that. And so just always reminding myself that like, you now work for yourself, and so you need to manage what you're expecting of yourself. And then, the other piece that I want us to get into is like what other people expect of you. Like you need to manage that, not just be, I can do it all because I love it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I think that, intuitively, right, when you get the inkling or, you feel in your body, right, maybe there's some stress or maybe there's some like imbalance. Is that the right way to like negate balance? Is it unbalance or imbalance?
I think imbalance is the word, and I think you negate it by creating the balance. Whatever. Okay, so you're feeling it. You're feeling it's not balanced. There is an imbalance, and you're feeling unbalanced. Yes.
Yeah. And so when you feel that in your body or, intuitively or wherever you're feeling that, I think it's just as important, especially as solopreneurs, and especially during these times, or just any times, right? To, take that walk or to do that African dance. And then even the data and research show that, it's not necessarily efficient for us to be working straight for 80 hours or, whatever that is. For me, in terms of like managing expectations of others, I think the realization came for me when, after depression and going through and processing and doing the work, I realized that the more I do those three things, so speak my truth, create and draw boundaries, and then stick to both of them, the easier it was and is for me to manage others' expectations of me in that, if that makes sense. But then it's
Absolutely.
also this, and then it's also this kind of cool, like not meaning to coach, and not in a, like, look at me, look at what I'm doing kind of way, but just sometimes when other people see you doing that in a kind and thoughtful and compassionate way, because of course you can be an asshole about it and be like, no, I will never schedule a meeting with you again. You could be like that, and then they'll never understand your why and your process and what's important to you. But if you take the time to explain, and it could be like, that person that, scheduled the call 3 times and, they're in your network, or it could be the person on LinkedIn who's reached out to you, that, like, true story, they want you to, like, be a part of Rodan and Fields in Japan. So, whatever it is, if you feel called to explain, speak your truth, draw the boundaries, and hold to it, I think it can also be an example for others too, who may need help in managing expectations for themselves and others as well.
Yeah, I think that I agree with when you're speaking up about it. So when you're saying this is what it is. So I look at expectations like, there's times where you're walking in to someone's expectations of you. And then you either go and do exactly what they expect, or you let them know, no, that's not how it's going to be. And then on the reverse can happen is, if you show up a certain kind of way, now they have an expectation because you've been doing that. And so when you decide, or when you have to make a change or a shift, they're not really ready for it, because who is this person? Who is this person that, like, all of a sudden you're not who you were however many weeks or months ago? And so for me, since I left my job, if I had stayed at my job, I would have had to establish, like, hey, this is the new way, because otherwise it wouldn't have meshed, because I would have been just all of a sudden being, like, completely different. And it's like, well, wait, like, so communicating what you can or will or won't do, and then with the whys, that becomes, like, kind of up to you how much you want to share, who you're comfortable with, who you think not deserves, but, like, who you need to, like, give a little bit more of an explanation. But it just feels so refreshing and good when it's just out on the table that, like, hey, I know that this may have been what I was doing before, but right now, this is what's going on with me. And from now on, this is how I need to be, and whether you give the reasons or how much of the reasons is, like, an individual, like, thing, but the bigger the change in you and the bigger the shift, there's probably going to end up being more of a reason, in more relationships, whether it's, like, work where you're the employee, or whether it's friendships and family, of, like, giving some sort of context, and that's if you care for how things will, like, proceed from there. But yeah, I definitely have found that, like, saying, like, what's not gonna work for me, or, like, hey, like, I actually need your help with this, or like I'm feeling this way, or I need to maintain this, has been super, super great. It's been really, really, and just it's a reminder. It reminds you like, oh yes, I do need to care about myself. Oh yes, I do have, and with depression playing into that, it's like I take it, we say like it's serious. This is like, it kind of sort of is a big deal, but it doesn't have to be this like so doom gloom kind of thing. But I respect it enough, and I realize I don't want those feelings. So whatever I can do to minimize or negate them, where I'm going to like acknowledge this is part of who I am now. And so I got to do things differently. Like she can't do that. She can't / she won't. So yeah, that's definitely been, a shift.
Yeah, I love that. I also was thinking as you were talking about how sometimes as we change and we grow and we evolve, we're just evolving past certain relationships that no longer serve us, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
And it's just it's part of the process, like the snake shedding the skin.
Yeah.
And, it's okay to move forward and into the unknown. I mean, it's as we're all headed that way, and I just think it's good to communicate in a positive and kind way, whichever way serves you, like you were saying. So,
and I think it's totally fine and good if you have to move on, especially if you're heading into the light, like you are like in a positive space and like you're feeling good. And maybe that's different. Maybe you were in like gripey, super negative, like maybe that's who you used to be. And so if you're feeling like the people surrounding you you're now in this different space and they're like sucking and pulling you down unintentionally, that could compromise not only who you want to be and who you've become, but that could compromise your mental health for you to like be kind of sucked back into it. And so it's like super important to like set those boundaries and or phase on out of some of those relationships as you see fit. So
yeah.
Is there anything else that like you want to like add on the subject, or like anything else that's come up?
I don't think so. Feel pretty good. What about you?
I mean, me too.
Okay. Oxymoron. Just kidding.
And not only when you said it, I was like, I literally was just in a conversation within the last few days speaking about the oxymoron and how much like I'm like yes, whatever the opposites are that don't seem to go together, she's them, I am them. Like, it doesn't really make sense that it's this and this, but it is. So yeah, that's it. So on that note, if you don't know, because here's the thing, as much as I love oxymoron, if I try to explain it, I'm probably not going to explain it right. So Google.
Or dictionary.com. It's your best friend.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.